When I started planning this video, I wanted it to be an exploration of exploration in games. I wanted to continue a series I really enjoyed that explored how different games handled a singular aspect of their creation. You might have noticed that in these videos I usually had one game I think tops the rest, or works better for me than any other. In movement in games I put TF2 and N++ at the top. In meditation in games I heap praise on Abzu, and in colour in games I have a special reverence for Hollow Knight and Mirror's Edge. And that was going to continue in this video. I planned on mentioning Breath of the Wild, the first Mass Effect, Hollow Knight, and a favourite of mine, The Music Machine, but none of those would take the crown. With only around 5 hours in Outer Wilds at the time, I already knew it handled exploration better than any other game I've played. Every moment was packed with pure, unadulterated discovery and joy in a way I couldn't stop thinking about. Then I played it some more, and it kept on getting better and better. Finally, after finishing the game, it became clear I couldn't talk about those other games. No other game I've played can even compare to Outer Wilds and how it handles exploration. Outer Wilds is a game best explored, not explained. As such, this video will be quite messy and a little abstract. I'm not so much interested in trying to explain Outer Wilds as much as describe my experience with it. While I won't go into any major moments until the end of this video, or deliberately spoil any puzzles at any point, I will be showing footage of the game, and every moment I show will be one you don't get to experience for the first time on your own terms. So if you haven't played it yet, I urge you to do just that as soon as you can. It's incredible, and I've been kicking myself for waiting so long to finally pick it up. If you need convincing, check out this excellent, basically spoiler-free video from Super Bunny Hop. Outer Wilds is secretly a sort of puzzle game meets Metroidvania, although not one that bars progress through new abilities or weapons, but rather through knowledge. This is why it's so hard to talk about it without spoiling things. The whole game can be considered a spoiler for the rest of the game. Exploration for exploration's sake is something I relish in the games I play. It's what excited me on Mass Effect's optional, largely empty planets, which I still adore. It's what thrilled me in Breath of the Wild, and in a bit of a different example, it's what drove the narrative in Her Story, and part of what made it so compelling. None of those examples can really be compared though, because in Her Story it was a sort of exploration that drove a narrative. In Breath of the Wild, exploration was one of many core gameplay elements that fed into each other, and in Mass Effect it was, as mentioned before, almost entirely optional and separate from the main storyline. There's nothing wrong with any of that, of course. All three games are incredible, but Outer Wilds is pure exploration. The narrative is exploration, the gameplay is exploration, and the reward for your exploration is yet more exploration. On the narrative side of things, I've got a few things I'd really like to say, but I'll save those for the end after another spoiler warning, as those will be major spoilers. For the moment, I want to look at the gameplay. Here I will have to spoil a few minor moments from the start of the game. I know this whole video has been preamble and spoiler warning so far, but here's another one for good measure. In your first moments in Outer Wilds, you'll be faced with an almost entirely optional tutorial of sorts. How to, or how not to, fly your ship, how to repair it and move around in zero-G environments, and how to use and why you should use your signal scope, among others, like Ghost Matter Bad. Another game would make all of these essential. Your signal scope, for example, is what will guide you to specific places and objects on various planets, and it's what I thought was as close as you'll get to a traditional quest marker in the game, only to realise after finishing it you can actually mark locations on your ship's log to appear as a location marker in-game. I think failing to realise that actually improved my experience, but all the same, not being told about these features is surprising. So too is the optional nature of these other tutorials. Ghost Matter is an invisible barrier you'll experience as an obstacle to your progress at multiple points in the game, but like the other tutorial elements, learning about it is entirely optional. Outer Wilds gets away with it because the whole game is essentially a tutorial for the rest of it. If you miss the ghost matter tutorial, you'll definitely learn to avoid it later. If you miss the signal scope tutorial, there are hints and UI elements that will remind you throughout the game. The Effect is a game that demands and rewards your curiosity, but doesn't really punish the mistakes you might make on the way. This is a horribly shaky, grainy video I took while snorkeling. This is going somewhere, and will link back to Outer Wilds in this discussion, but for the moment, this fish is a blue groper. Here's a jellyfish. Cool. This is what I expected to see going into the water. What I didn't expect to see was this. It's hard to tell from the footage, but those fins bobbing up and down are a pod of dolphins. I'm not sure if my friend has seen them, so I call out to him.
Dolphins!
No one sounds good in a snorkeling mask. This was amazing. Moments like this are what I live for. Surprises that could be just around the corner, at the end of a long trip, or just in your backyard. This is exploration in the purest sense, and it's exhilarating. Though in real life it's of course usually preceded by hours of relatively less exciting spectacle. The games that have come closest to inspiring a similar feeling are ones I hold in high regard. Mass Effect and Breath of the Wild were what previously got me as close as I thought possible to that feeling, but Outer Wilds outdoes them all, while inspiring the same sort of wonder all things space did for me when I was a kid. I think that's because more than the other games I mentioned, Outer Wilds is about not just discovering something, it's about understanding it. This footage isn't exciting without context. If you don't know that these are dolphins, you might not have understood why I was so excited. If you don't understand that each point of light in the night sky is a sun with likely a few planets orbiting it, at scales impossibly huge that are themselves grouped in galaxies upwards of 50,000 light years across, well, they might as well be fireflies. In Outer Wilds, everything is pretty to look at, but like those stars, it's only when you understand what you're looking at that Outer Wilds really reveals itself to you and the wonders therein. Here's a clip I took of one of Australia's most notably unique fauna, a so-called peacock spider. Before this clip was taken, I had been looking for them for around a year without understanding the brilliant colours of the males only show for one stretch of the year during mating season. Understanding the reason behind their bright colours, what they're used for, and why this male seems cautious looking at this female is the same sort of wonder Outer Wilds inspires. I can observe this male Maratus plumosus, the female who seems unimpressed, and then predict and observe the result. The female, who likely already mated, sees an appealing meal rather than a potential mate, and narrowly misses out on catching the male. Seeing it is one thing. Understanding it is another. With my face crunched into a bush while watching spiders half the size of a grain of rice, understanding what they were doing while observing them do it was a nearly religious experience. The whole universe was quiet for a moment, and the postcards from that experience and others like it, though wonderful for me, are only a poor facsimile of that moment. Outer Wilds can't quite inspire that same awe, but it got closer than any other game I've played. Each planet has rules, and unpicking those rules to gain an understanding of how the whole game works is where the exploration in Outer Wilds becomes something I haven't experienced in any other game before. Maybe you're starting to see why I'm so afraid of spoiling it for anyone else. You only get to experience it for the first time once. That process of observing something and slowly learning about it, understanding it and exploring it with that new understanding is an experience that can be spoiled for you in a way that most games can't be. From moment to moment you'll be flying between planets, exiting your ship, exploring ruins built by an ancient species, and learning all you can. Slowly your understanding of the solar system you're exploring grows, and with each discovery comes a new objective. Its exploration is pure because it's both what you do in the game and how you do it. Of course, it isn't just the moment-to-moment gameplay I'm afraid of spoiling. It's the larger narrative at play too. So here is a final, major spoiler warning. There's an aspect of the narrative I really want to discuss that will massively spoil the game. Most games, implicitly or explicitly, have an objective, something you're supposed to do. There are some exceptions. See Mr. Wendell's excellent video on games or moments in them where the only winning move is not to play. But for the most part, games are about doing things. And generally speaking, this is true in Outer Wilds. The first objective is one you give yourself. You're prompted to choose what you'd like to do in the opening stretch of the game. After that, you're never really told what you have to do. Some of the travellers you meet on the way give you a few hints on where you might want to start, but even meeting those travellers is as optional and essential as the rest of the game is. After this first objective, the others branch out from it like a detective's corkboard, each thread leading to or connecting to another point of interest. Something a lot of people talk about in Outer Wilds is the fact that puzzles and their solutions exist in the game in a way that generally doesn't require your interaction, merely your observation. That is to say, the solution to almost every puzzle exists within the world of the game, whether you're there to witness it or not, but it's in witnessing them that you are able to progress. That's not true for every puzzle, of course, but many of them are simply about being in the right place at the right time, and in this game that's far more exciting than you might think. Outer Wilds is built on a time loop. At the beginning of each loop, you wake up to see something exploding in the sky above Giant's Deep, and at the end of each loop, the sun goes supernova, wiping out everything in the solar system. Assuming you haven't just spoiled the game for yourself, you aren't aware it's a time loop just yet on your first run, so that first objective you choose for yourself is where you'll start. But once you realise it's a time loop, and these two images are what bookend every loop, you quickly start to put things together. The sun is exploding. This strange device shoots something across the sky at the beginning of every loop. It follows then that you might expect that it is this device or something it's attached to that sets off the events that led to the sun's collapse. It follows from there your goal is to stop it from doing so. You read writings discussing a sun station and its terrible power. Some think it would be wrong to build it. Others are excited. They want to explode the sun to fuel a grand scientific endeavour. So that's it, you think. I need to reach the sun station and turn it off. When you finally reach the sun station though, you learn it didn't work. It never worked. It couldn't work. Your sun, the source of life in your little pocket of the universe, is dying of natural causes, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. There's much more to the game and its narrative, both before and after this point. But while the game does have you do things in it, it's not actually a game about doing something. You don't blast a hole in a cave to reach your destination. You explore looking for another way round. You don't hunt those that hunt you, and you don't even rescue those that need rescuing. This isn't a game about fixing a problem or saving the world. It's ultimately about accepting it. Accepting that it's all coming to an end, and while that concept isn't without a sense of horror, it's also beautiful. From this ending is a new, fresh beginning. The Nomai, the ancient race whose footsteps you've been following, had a goal that long after they were gone, you have the chance to complete. They didn't set out to fix the universe, nor to harm it. They set out to understand it, to explore every unexplored inch of it, dedicating their lives to a task you, a stranger to their whole species, are eventually able to complete. You get to see everything the Nomai sought to see, and nothing is changed or fixed. It's only observed, and it is beautiful. It's not just beautiful in Outer Wilds, but outside of it too. Outer Wilds is abstract, enthusiastic. It's a game built around capturing the feeling you had when you were young, looking at the stars and shivering in a mixture of awe and perhaps a little fear as you try to comprehend how small you really are. Everything seemed impossibly grand back then. And then you grow older and that excitement wanes. You still feel something when you look at the stars, knowing how numerous, massive and far away they are. but it's easy to forget to look at them now. The real world is a bit more cynical and complicated than the idyllic lives led on Timber Hearth, and it isn't easy to muster the same enthusiasm for exploration the people of Outer Wilds have. At the end of last year, I was on a trip with a friend who wanted to kayak out to a nearby island. I was a bit tired and the weather was pretty bad, so I didn't join him. He came back a few hours later than expected and showed me this footage. There was a seal colony on the seaward side of the island. After making the trip myself, we stayed, watching the seals for a few hours as the sun slowly went down. I'd heard rumours of a fur seal colony on that island for years, but never found them. I'd half forgotten about them before my friend confirmed them. Seeing them for myself was amazing. I bring all this up because I think describing that experience is the best way I can describe how Outer Wilds made me feel. Heading out into the unknown to be rewarded with a new discovery, a new piece of the puzzle that makes up the world around us, is the core of what Outer Wilds wants to achieve in both its narrative and in its gameplay. The game values and celebrates curiosity. Exploring the world and worlds around you is not merely a goal, it's a privilege. Outer Wilds was a game that delighted me, and one that was, by its end, surprisingly emotional and comforting. It felt like I got to, for just a moment, look at the stars again the way I did as a kid. Playing it, I felt dread, excitement, curiosity, wonder, and awe in ways I rarely seem to now as an adult. I don't know what that's worth to you, but to me, it was worth everything, and certainly more than what I paid for the game. That's just me though. I'd love to know what you think. What was your experience in Outer Wilds like? Is there a game I didn't mention that handles exploration in a really exciting way? I look forward to reading your comments below. Huge thanks as always goes to my patrons. Their support is a huge help in making these videos. If you'd like to support me, you can do that at patreon.com/varioushorses, but you can also support me here for nothing. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing them. YouTube doesn't boost channels like this one, where I like to put in time and thought into my content. Basically, if you'd like to see more of this sort of video on YouTube, let YouTube know. And if there's something I can work on to get it to that point, feel free to drop constructive criticism under this video. I'm always looking to improve. As always, cheers. Have a good one.